Hi ladies and gentlemen, in this tutorial I want to talk to you about saving your template as you're working on it, and also we're going to add some text to our template. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to as you're working on your template, come up here and click on Save. And one of the things that you should be aware of is the fact that because we are in a web browser in essence and we're designing this on the web, if you time out or if it disconnects from the web, you could lose your latest changes. So come up here and click on Save a lot. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Okay. Now I need to get my text. I'm going to minimize this and I'm going to go inside my folder with my logos and my image, and I'm going to double click on the text that I've done. Now I have two monitors, so let me drag that over. This is a great website. It's Lorem Ipsum, but it uses Bacon. I believe it's lorembacon.com. Having said that, here's all kinds of sample text. I'm going to select it all. I'm going to right click and go copy. I'm going to minimize this stuff, this. I'm going to go back to my browser, and now I'm ready to enter text. So when you're working in this stuff, if you have some web design background, it can make working within this tool easier. Because in a nutshell, what we're really doing here is we're really sort of designing a little bit of a web page that's going to act as an email. So a lot of the characteristics we're going to talk about are similar to web design. So here is a box with content in it. I'm going to select all this content, and what I'm going to do is delete it out of here. But before I do that, I want you to observe that when I clicked in here, this box popped up. This is another example of contextual menus or options. Only when I click on things do things show up. What can be very frustrating is sometimes you're like, how do I change the type or the color or any of that? And you're looking around, you can't find it. And it's not until you actually click on something that things come up. So when you highlight something like I just did, I can just paste right over it. So what I just did is I pasted right over that. And you see it sort of brought in distorted text. This is very common when you're working with web stuff or design stuff. The text comes in very plain. It didn't keep the paragraphs. And now I've got to go in and edit this. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to put in a space in a couple areas here. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start thinking about, okay, what size do we want this to be? How big do we want this text? So I'm going to select all the text. I'm going to come up top and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to go up to 15. Now I think when you're doing text, you need to think about your audience and think, is it a young audience? Is it an older audience? Are their eyes, and I'm wearing reading glasses as I do this. So for someone like me, well, I'd want it a little bit bigger. Take that into account. But also the text color right here is all gray. And we have a gray background. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all my text. Make sure I got it all. No, we got to go down a little bit further. Okay. I selected all my text, and I'm going to make the text black. Now these are things that as you're going through them, you might want to be thinking about this in advance. I can also, for this, if you think of this as a little cell where all my text is, I can change the background color to something different. Let me do pink just so it's outrageous. And actually, I take that back. It wasn't the entire background. It was just highlighting on that. Because I don't want that, I'm going to come up and click on the undo. Now it made it smaller again and it went a step further. See, that's another example of things didn't react the way I was anticipating. I thought it was just going to take off the highlighting, but it took off other things as well. For the highlighting, I got to come up and I got to click on the X to take it off. So it didn't undo the last step. It sort of undid the step before it. This is stuff you start to learn through time. So the highlighting color is gone now. But again, we've got to make this darker. So I want to make it, and again, I'm going to zoom down a little bit. Selected all the text. I'm going to make it black. And it might have kept it at black. Yep, there we go. Okay. So see how just even for me with experience, some of the stuff just, you got to sort of figure it out. Okay. Let's make this a little bit bigger just to really make it pop. Do we like that font? Well, we can change the font if we want to. Okay, let's just change it to something else just to make it different. Okay, there we go. So now we've changed the font, we've changed the size, we've done a bunch of things. Now over here on the right-hand side, one of the things I'll draw your attention to is something called padding. And what padding does is it adds space to the top of this cell. So right now the padding is 5, but I just want to add a little bit more. And see what it did? It's just shooting it down so that this area isn't quite as crowded. I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to add padding to the top of this to make that move down. So maybe now I don't want this one down quite as far. And again, this is contextual. This stuff's showing up. Maybe I want it less. So I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. And see, you can play around with this stuff and just get it to work for you. I'm going to click here. I'm going to grab this information. I'm going to change the font color, the text color, to orange. This one I'm going to make a little bit bigger. So this is the point where when you get in here, you just come in and start playing around and seeing what it looks like. Now, one of the things that's concerning me is I don't like a gray background, but for a moment, I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to come up and click on Save. When we click Save, periodically, we want to look and see what this really looks like. So I can come up top and click on this drop down right here and click on Preview. So I can preview what this email is going to look like when it's sent out. I can go down through it, and obviously we've got a gray background. I don't like that. While you're in here, one of the things you need to know is that in this day and age, and for those of you that are used to the older piece of software that was called Swift Page Email or Act Marketing, you would find that some of the things didn't adapt really well to smaller devices. So up here on the top right, this is what it would look like if you received this email in your desktop computer or laptop. But if you got it on some kind of mobile device, by coming up here and clicking on mobile, you can see what your email is going to look like on a smaller device. It adapts and is made smaller to adapt for that design or that size. I'm going to click X to close it down. So here we have this row, and the background color can be set right over here. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to choose white. And now to me that looks a little bit better. So we would have to set each row as we felt it needed to be set. Maybe we want a little bit of gray just to break it up a little bit. But now this is starting to look a little bit different. I'm going to click Save. Now I'm going to go back up and I'm going to click on Preview. And I'm going to look at my email. Now to me that's a better look. I don't mind having some background colors because I think it can break up the email. But now we're getting a little bit closer to what this is going to look like when we send out that email. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tony Holowitz. Thank you so very much. Have a great day. Bye now.